launch Porsche's first battery-powered model, the Taycan was billed as the company's first all-electric sports car. Can a sports car also be an SUV? Porsche's insisting that it can, and to prove the point has bought us this Taycan spin-off model, the Taycan Cross Turismo.
All Cross Turismo derivatives are almost indecently fast for anything purporting to be an SUV. Even the base 4 Cross Turismo variant has 476 PS and gets to 62 miles an hour in just 5.1 seconds, en route to 137 miles an hour. This 571 PS 4S version improves those stats to 4.1 seconds and 149 miles an hour. Both the Turbo and the Turbo S variants develop a standard 625 PS and have a launch control feature that for short periods can boost that to 680 PS on the Turbo and as much as 762 PS on the Turbo S. The latter, as a consequence, able to demolish the 0 to 62 miles an hour sprint in just 2.9 seconds. More important perhaps than the sheer speed are two other attributes. First, this Cross Turismo's low-slung stance means that it doesn't really roll any more than a conventional Taycan sports saloon, or if it does, I couldn't discern it. Which is nice if you want an SUV without any dynamic downsides. Secondly, the brakes are brilliant, progressive, and as usual on an EV, mainly driven by the regenerative system. The latter, by the way, can't be controlled with steering wheel paddles. There are instead simple on, off, or auto options on the central screen. Even with on activated, there isn't ever really a one pedal style of abrupt slowing off throttle. The Cross Turismo shares the same powertrain options as the normal Taycan, save for the fact that it can't be ordered with two things most customers for this Porsche EV don't tend to want anyway: rear-wheel drive and the smaller 79.2 kWh battery pack. All variants get the Taycan's usual twin e-motor setup, with the rear unit driving a 2-speed transmission with a shorter initial ratio optimised for initial acceleration. The standardised 93.4 kWh Performance Battery Plus setup will take the car anywhere between 241 and 283 miles depending on variant and the conditions, though not if you exercise your right foot, as you'll be tempted to. None of the dynamic stuff in play here is anything we haven't seen before. Torque vectoring, adaptive damping with 3-chamber air suspension, and optionally rear-wheel steering and PDCC electromechanical roll stabilisation. But with Porsche's 4D chassis control setup coordinating it all like the conductor of an orchestra, the result through the turns is quite simply astonishing when you consider the amount of weight in play here. And steering, brakes and ride quality are all brilliant, almost 911-like. No other large SUV, EV or otherwise drives like this. The soul of a sports car? That about covers it. The key difference with this EV over most of its rivals lies in its 800-volt power supply, which is double that normally seen with electric cars, and is based on tech trialled by Porsche in its Le Mans winning 919 hybrid race car. The idea here is that by pushing up voltage, you can drop the current without affecting power output. Lower current means faster charging times. Using a 9.6 kWh wall box, replenishment will take about 10.5 hours. A more common 7.4 kilowatt garage wall box would take slightly longer, around 13.5 hours. If you want to do better and your home has access to 3-phase electricity, the brand will offer you a wall box upgrade to the Anderson A2 system, which can reach speeds of up to 22 kilowatts, though only if you paid extra for the optional onboard AC charger with 22 kilowatt package. Using that, you'll be able to fully top up the battery in just over 4 hours. As usual with EVs, there's a downloadable application allowing you to set charging times and precondition the cabin remotely. It's the Porsche Connect app. And for when you're out and about, well, Porsche is keen to talk of the Taycan Cross Turismo's peak charging capacity of 270 kilowatts, which theoretically means that the 93.4 kilowatt-hour battery can be recharged from 5 to 80% in just 23 minutes. That's at an 800-volt charging station, and currently there are only a handful of those in the UK. A more easily located 400-volt public charging station will take about an hour and a half to do the same thing, providing you pay Porsche Extra for the optional onboard booster, which increases the car's standard charging peak from 50 kilowatts to 150 kilowatts. What else? Well, the service intervals are every 2 years or 20,000 miles, and insurance for all variants is a top-of-the-shop Group 50. You can have this crossover-style Taycan design in two forms. We have the more SUV-like Cross Turismo model here. The alternative is the Sport Turismo model, basically the same car but without side cladding or raised suspension. Our focus here, as I said, is on the Cross Turismo variant, which sits 20mm higher off the ground than the standard Taycan Sport Saloon, or 30mm higher with the off-road design package fitted as here. Now, both the Sport and Cross Turismo models have a nose section differentiated from that of the ordinary four-door Taycan by this specific front apron. Inside, as you'd expect, things are much as they are with the Taycan Sport Saloon, though you sit a little higher, and a compass mounted on the top of the dashboard is optionally available as part of the Sport Chrono Pack to give more of an SUV vibe. As with every model in the Taycan range, classic Porsche design staples here mix with modern technology. The instrument cluster is wider than the steering wheel in a manner reminiscent of the original 911. Take a closer look, though, and you'll find that what lies behind the chunky three-spoke wheel is anything but retro. A 16.8-inch curved digital screen, one of up to 4 here at the front of the cabin. There's a lower 8.4-inch touchpad on the centre console, just below a 10.9-inch PCM Porsche Communication Management Central Infotainment Monitor, which can be optional extended with a further supplementary display for the front passenger. There's a lot to take in. All of this feels entirely appropriate to a cutting-edge 21st century premium EV, but you can't help sometimes feeling that old-fashioned knobs and buttons, particularly on this lower centre display, would be easier and more intuitive to use on the move. There are other curiosities too, this rather hidden knurled dash-mounted gear shifter. Plus, you're not offered any sort of handbrake button, and there are no mechanically operated louvers for the air vents either. You have to activate them via this lower screen. Still, you adjust to all of this quite quickly, and the instrument screen in particular has been well thought through, based, as you can see, around these 3 configurable round virtual dials. The main interior design changes that differentiate this Cross Turismo, though, are at the back. And let's start by taking a look at the rear seat. Inside, there's a modified roofline which enables rear seat passengers to enjoy 47mm more headroom than in the lower slung Taycan Sport Saloon. And that's not compromised much by the huge optional panoramic glass roof that we've got fitted here, which floods the cabin with light, though unfortunately it doesn't darken at the press of a button like the one in a rival BMW iX. Clever so-called foot garages scooped out of the EV floor plan mean that there's plenty of space for your feet. You don't get this middle part of the rear bench as standard. That's only supplied as part of an extra cost 4+1 package, which you may not want because you'd struggle to take 3 folk back here, thanks to the kind of overtly high central transmission tunnel you'd think an electric vehicle wouldn't need. Right, let's finish by inspecting the luggage areas. As you'd expect from this Cross Turismo model's more SUV-like body style, the boot is bigger than that of the Taycan Sport Saloon, increased from the 407-litre total you get with that EV sedan to 446 litres here. Lift the bonnet and there's an additional 84-litre front frunk compartment. If you're choosing a Taycan because it's a more practical version of what an electric 911 might be like, then you'll probably like the Taycan Cross Turismo even more. It manages to feel both involving and commanding to drive and, like the standard Taycan, is stupendously quick in its fast performance. Also like the standard Taycan though, its EV range figures are some way from the class best. But since the typical owner will have several other combustion sports luxury models in his or her oak-timbered garage, that shouldn't matter much. Of greater importance is whether the dawn of time looks represent the statement that you want to make at the golf club. If you're happy with that, make sure you tick the off-road design package option, a must-have, if said club is at the end of the kind of rutted track that might ruin a conventional Taycan. Actually, driving one of these might ruin a conventional Taycan for you. In many ways, it's the next stage on.